Hello, this is Joseph from NoteFull, and I'm excited to talk to you today and help you improve on the new TOEFL speaking question 4, which is the old TOEFL speaking question 6. So we'll talk about that in a little bit of detail, but first I want to prepare you for this video because I want it to be kind of a training session between us so that you can really feel improvement at the end and on your next TOEFL be in a position to get your dream score. So the way I want to do that is that most students, when they interact with NoteFull, it's either through an email first, or they register for a program, or maybe a phone call. But in the first interaction, it's very casual, right? Kind of back and forth, learning about you, what you want your TOEFL for, what your dream score is. So at the same time, I want this to not only be kind of like that, to support you and guide you, but I also want it to be like a tutoring session. So we're really going to work on an actual question together. I'm going to train you on some things to help you improve so it's easier from what we learned that other students get a lot of help with when we train them. So to begin, I want to make sure to have that, and that's going to take some time. So maybe about 30 minutes to an hour. So I know a lot of videos, sometimes they're popular when they're 3 minutes and things like that, but our goal is really to guide you and to work with you when you're kind of struggling or when you're new and you really want to be walked every step of the way. Because that's kind of what we focus on, and that's what I want to make sure to provide you with. So if that sounds good, let's jump right in and get started. And so we're going to go into the video here, into the screen, so it's like a little chalkboard. And so the first thing I want to tell you is just to prepare you, depending on when you're watching this video. I'm sure you're pretty aware that the TOEFL is going to change in August 2019. And so before that change, when this video was made, there were 6 questions on the TOEFL speaking section, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so what's going to happen after August is that 2 of those are going to disappear. TOEFL is going to get rid of them. Question 1 and question 5 are going to be gone. So what that means is that you're only going to have, after August, 4 questions. 1, 2, 3, 4, which is great news because even though each question will have more value in your score, so you can say there's a little bit more pressure to perform, fewer chances to make errors, because you're only working on 4 questions, you can really train effectively for them. So this is the old question 6, which is going to be the new question 4 after August. And so question 2 is going to turn into question 1. Question 3 will turn into question 2. And question 4, right now before August, is going to turn into question 3. So I hope that didn't confuse you, but just to add some clarity. Now what I want to do is kind of talk to you up here for a minute again, because one benefit is that we've been through TOEFL changes for the last decade. So we were training on the TOEFL when it was paper-based, way back when. Then when it was computer-based, and then when it turned internet-based. So we've seen how the TOEFL and ETS goes through the changes. And so what we've learned is, at least from before, oftentimes it takes about 3 to 6 months for the TOEFL to stabilize. So you'll see variations happen a little bit more when the changes take place. And then after 3 to 6 months, it becomes quite predictable. Over the years, they'll change a few things, but not too much. So the purpose of this video is to guide you in a way that prepares you for anything. That doesn't mean they're going to be huge changes, but maybe you'll see little variations more than you're used to. For example, one thing that you can consider is, since they're eliminating question 1, question 2 for the TOEFL speaking before August is a choice question, an opinion about whether you agree or disagree with something, whether you prefer A or B, what you think should be done, that kind of thing. So that question is going to stay pretty much the same, but I imagine that maybe some elements of question 1, which is like an open question, sometimes you have 3 choices, might find their way into question 2, that new question 1. And the other questions, that are going to be in the TOEFL after August, I think they're going to be pretty much the same, pretty predictable. So I just wanted to give you a sense that as you take the TOEFL, to be a little open. And that's why we train students with comprehension first, strategy second. Because when you comprehend what you're doing, you're going to be more prepared for variation. You're not going to be, thrown off. And that way you can be confident when you take the TOEFL. And we know we've done our job for you. And so that means that there's going to be some critical thinking. There's going to be some challenge in this video, but it's going to be good because it's going to build your strength so that you can succeed on your exam. I hope that sounds good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back into the screen. And what I want to share with you is in that focus on comprehension first, strategy second, which is definitely going to get you to success faster. Today's video focuses on the new question 4, the old question 6. Now, before we start training, we need to have some perspective. And so I want to talk to you a little bit, just as a quick reminder, of how the TOEFL grades you. So what's going to happen is that on the TOEFL, of course, your answer is going to be recorded. We're going to talk about the structure of the question and everything soon, but you're going to have a recording for question 4, new question 4, old question 6 is going to be 60 seconds. And that recording is going to be listened to by 2 raters. And each rater is going to assign that recording a rating of 1, 2, 3, or 4 over all the questions, right? And what's going to happen is your ratings are going to be then converted into a score out of 30, right? That's where you get your 24 out of 30, your 30 out of 30, your dream score. Now, what this means is this is why it can be really challenging, and you want to be compassionate with yourself if it's tough to improve, because these are huge shifts. That means they're dividing every single speaker of English across millions of students through every country into 4 categories only. So that means that you can be a high 3, right? You can really be doing well. And you can sound quite different from a 3 that might be a lower 3. A student who recorded an answer that just barely got that rating. So that's why sometimes we have to improve several habits. We have to study for several hours over several months to make that significant shift to the next rating and see our score jump from a 22 out of 30 to a 24 out of 30 to a 26 out of 30. So we're going to train you to consider your evaluation, whether your recording is going to earn more likely a 3 or a 4. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, we got to go to the basics, right? Comprehension first, strategy second. Let's actually see the rubric, the rules that the ETS raters are given to evaluate your recording by. Now, I want to be, practical because we've taken the TOEFL. We've been doing this for 10 years. We've worked with thousands of students. We heard so much that when you look at this, it is quite general, right? So it's not necessarily the best thing to look at when you train because it's so general that you kind of don't really know where to go or how to improve. But with our guidance, we can mix them both. And with this idea of comprehension first, strategy second, just by connecting with the language they use to rate you a 3 or 4, I think it's really going to open your eyes and help you to train to improve and to just know what to do to succeed. So they're going to rate you a 1, 2, 3, or 4. We've only included the scores of 3 and 4 because our experience is that most of you watching this video want to score in the 20s, either in the low 20s or the high 20s. And a lot of our students want to get 24, 25, 26 for physical therapy, dentistry, pharmacy, practicing medicine, law, going to graduate school. So we know we're working with you and you're serious about success. So we're going to talk now about what we've done, which is just deleted a couple of things so that we really get to the root of what's the difference between a recording that earns a 3 and a recording that earns a 4, so you know how to move up and how we're going to train you. So let's go over this language together. So we have general description, delivery, language use, and topic development. So when you deliver your answer, and this is the ratings that are used right now before August for questions 3, 4, 5, and 6, and after August they will be used for questions 2, 3, and 4. So the question we're training on today. So when you look at this, you see it says fulfills the demands of the task. That's basically that you answered the question. You did what they asked you to do. Now here's another one that's pretty good. Highly intelligible and exhibits sustained coherent discourse. That just means that when we listen to your recording from beginning to end, we understand. We see the logic, we see the connection. We're not lost in your sentences. So this is really important because sometimes students forget that nothing is assumed. Everything must be expressed to create the main idea. Now we're going to train you because that might make you feel too much pressure to say a lot, but we're going to talk to you about the details not being as important as the connection. Now, how does that compare with the 3 rating? It falls short of being fully developed. Essentially what that means is your answer focuses so much on the details that it's not really clear or easy to see that you understand the connection of things. And again, we'll talk about that. Noticeable lapses in the expression of ideas. That just means that when we're listening to you, there's kind of a jump in logic. So for example, if you think about the alphabet, we kind of hear you say A, B, and then pause, and then D, and then F. So it's like something's missing. If we follow you carefully, there's something that leaves us with a question mark. Now, delivery is how you sound. Speech is generally clear, fluid, and sustained. So that just means you flow smoothly from beginning to end. You know, you can have some hiccups, some difficulties, some ums and uhs, but overall, it's easy to listen to you. Now, I want to kind of talk with you about this because you can have any accent. I want you to feel confident. It's just that the sounds that you're producing are clear enough so that we understand the words you're saying. So accents are perfectly fine. But when words are difficult to hear, and that creates a difficulty in following the sentence, then we have trouble. And that shows itself as minor difficulties with pronunciation and intonation. This is a really often skipped point for students. We're going to talk about that today. You notice my intonation, right? You see how my pitch changes to create emphasis. There's kind of a sing-song nature to the speaking English. And here it says require some listener effort, right? So that's pretty clear. So now we know that we need to fulfill the task and be logical. We need to speak from beginning to end smoothly. Now this can be hard. This can take hours and weeks of effort depending on where we are, but it gives you a sense of how you're being evaluated. So thank you for being patient. Really important for us to set the foundation so that when we train, you know exactly why we're focusing on what we're focusing on, so you don't have weeks of effort that don't result in improvement. Now we have language use. So that just means that you're using the appropriate words. I think this effective word choice makes the most sense. Not difficult words, not tricky words. The simplest, clearest words that are accurate. For example, let's say a student is going to blank the bus, right? We hear many answers. For example, the student's gonna get the bus. Now, get is kind of awkward, right? It's not the ideal word choice. We don't really get the bus. What do? We take the bus. Now, take is also strong, but another stronger word that's a bit more accurate might be ride, right? So word choice means that you're thinking carefully and just choosing the simplest words that mean what you want to say. So for example, would you make food or would you cook food, right? Would you make a cookie or would you bake a cookie? So just little things that show the difference between a 3 and a 4, because a 3, some imprecise or inaccurate use of vocabulary or grammar. Now, this can be tricky because some is not a lot. So we notice that students tend to struggle with, every student has their own difficulties and challenges, but where we notice is delivery, with smoothness being a challenge for students, and word choice. Students just don't seem to concentrate on the words they're using, just kind of want to get through their notes, but we're going to talk about that. Now, topic development. Okay, clear progression of ideas. basically, it kind of copies this idea of is highly intelligible from general description. I think the only thing that really makes sense is conveys the relevant information. I'm going to circle this because you're literally being tested on what you're choosing to say, because the lecture will always be longer than 60 seconds, but your speech will be limited to 60 seconds. So they're actually testing you. If you try to say everything, you've not passed the test and will earn a 3, dropping your score to maybe a 22 or 20 or 18 out of 30. And you see appropriate detail. That means you're not saying just anything, but you're saying what expresses the point. Now, thank you for following me with this, because we're going to refer to this later, and it's going to be really important, right? The foundation for your success. Now, what's a 3? Some incompleteness, inaccuracy, or lack of specificity, and choppiness in the progression of ideas. Again, that's kind of like this idea. So they're repeating themselves a little bit. So I hope you can really take this in. And now I want to talk to you one-on-one, right? Thank you. We spent, I don't know, like 15 minutes on that so far. We haven't even talked about the question yet. Now, this is the biggest thing that separates us, because our whole focus is not on practicing with you, but on training you. So after every hour, you're more skillful and able to do what you need to do to get your dream score. So it takes a little effort, it takes some thinking. So I'm really happy you're with me, and I think it's going to contribute to, at the end of this video, really feeling more able to succeed. I hope so. So now, we talked about that. So let's take a deep breath, and remember that it would be great if you watch this video 3 times, if you're working hard to improve. You know, if after one watch you got it, that's perfect and awesome. But our experience is it usually takes 2 or 3 times to watch. You know, the first time to get the idea, the second time to really understand it, right? First time is kind of awareness, second time you understand, and third is when things start to make a lot of sense. And we can even say we're developing mastery. Now, under the timed, pressured conditions of the TOEFL, we can still perform. So that's my hope for you. And remember that on YouTube, you know, if you hit the little gear icon, you know, YouTube's always changing, but I hope it remains a gear icon for a while. You can speed up the video. So it can even improve your listening comprehension if you watch the second time a little faster or the third time. So we're having our conversation, we're moving in, right? I got to throw in a "you can do it, stay strong." And now let's go ahead and practice an actual question, right? Dun, dun, dun. The fun begins. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a question from our program, right? We have courses in the speaking, all sections of the TOEFL, so we're going to get right to it. And what we want to do is, again, train you and from what we've learned from students. So if we prepare you, what I want to say is that most students that we have that are working to improve need some support with how to take notes in a way that supports them. And here's the most important thing. Understand first. Take notes second. So a lot of students, what they do is so if we kind of work together right here, they'll start to almost try to take dictation, like just every word they hear, they write down. And so that means the words are kind of bypassing or jumping past your brain and going to your hand. But what you want to do is you want to understand the idea that you're hearing first. And only after you understand, take notes. Because if you think about it, you're being tested on your ability to explain something, on your ability to pick the relevant details. How can you do that if you didn't understand and then you took notes? That's going to be really challenging, because that means when you're looking at your notes and you're talking, you're stressed about the time, you're thinking to yourself about the notes, you're really probably not giving much attention to the story or the explanation itself, and that's going to keep you at a 3 rating, keep you at a 22, 20, or 18 out of 30, when my experience is most of you want to get to the mid-20s to high 20s, right? And that's what we're going to do. So how do we train that? right? Over the years, what have we learned? We'll change that immediately for you. Very simple. All I want you to do is close your eyes, relax, and listen with full intention, just as if you're listening to a documentary, watching a movie. You know, it's just, oh, I'm learning about something new. I assume that most of you love learning. Maybe you don't love the TOEFL, but I imagine a lot of you like picking up magazines, you're academic professionals. So if we engage that, you can really find interesting information from the TOEFL. Oh, I didn't know that. That's kind of interesting. So let's listen to an example, question 6. Let's just listen, and then afterwards we'll talk about the structure from your comprehension of what it is and how we can create our answer to create success. So let's listen to a typical, common, standard, what you can expect, question 6 before August, question 4 after August on the TOEFL. So here we go.
Jean Piaget, a famous Swiss psychologist, proposed a theory to explain how children learn to adapt their thinking to better understand and function within their world. According to Piaget, they adapt their thinking in 2 important but different ways, through assimilation and accommodation. In assimilation, individuals observe something that they've never seen before and then incorporate what they've observed into their existing knowledge without any change. For example, consider a little boy who wants to hang a picture in his room. He's never used a hammer or a nail before, but he sees his father use them all the time. He remembers that his father takes the nail with one hand and places it in the position he would like. Then he takes the hammer in his other hand and swings it to hit the nail so that it will firmly rest in the wall. Finally, his father takes the picture and hangs it. Though the boy has never done this before, he simply takes what he's observed his father do, incorporates that information into his own knowledge, and then uses it to achieve his desired result. That's assimilation. During accommodation, an individual adjusts or changes his behavior to adapt to new information. If we expand on the previous example, we can clear this idea up. Let's say that as the boy copies his father, he doesn't quite get the desired result. He will adapt his behavior to the situation. For instance, he knows that his father always holds the hammer from the bottom. But when the boy holds the hammer from the bottom, he finds that it is too heavy and he can't control it very well, and he never manages to hit the nail. He adapts to this new information, this fact that he can't control the hammer well, by holding it nearer to the top. Thus, the child changes his behavior as a result of the new information and succeeds at hanging the picture. That's accommodation.
All right, congratulations. So, it's tough. It's not easy. But what I hope you kind of got jarred or shaken into is this completely new focus of actually listening to understand, following the story, picking up the transition words the professor is using, hearing the repetition of key words, so that your entire focus is on the story, the explanation, what's being taught, rather than, oh, I missed that. What was that word? What was this detail? So for everyone, depending, some of you right now probably got it. Excellent. And some of you probably need to rewind and hear it again and just kind of relax and start to let go of the desire to catch every word, to ignore it so that you can get all the words around it, the context, and find that it's easier to understand the story. So now let's go into the structure that you can expect on the TOEFL for this question so you can be prepared for success using this as an example. So we go back, and again, you're going to be able to, I'll have a link for you to download our notes that we're making here. But if we go back to our screen, one thing that I want to share with you is that when you heard this, it was about 2 minutes, right? You're always going to listen to a 1.5 to 2 minute lecture from a professor on some kind of topic on psychology, business, animal behavior, kind of these basic TOEFL topics that you, I think, are kind of familiar with. Now, the first thing you're going to do, as you've already heard, is what was this about? This was about a theory about who? adults? No, children, right? So you're kind of picking it up, trust your understanding and your comprehension. So the idea was about how children function in their world, right? So you're going to get a topic. And here, I'm just going to put notes, how CH for children function in the world, right? Now, what I want to do next is, what did they do? They talked about that a little bit. This was a topic. So this main idea, this topic is either going to be described or defined. They're going to talk about it for a little bit. We're going to spend 20 seconds introducing it, 10 seconds, 25 seconds, depending on the example you get. Then what do? Well, they talk about two subtopics. So they'll talk about two ways children function, two methods, two consequences, two reasons, two results, two something. And they might be different. You know, the first might be how something is done. The second might be the result. So there's some variation, but it's like a topic described and then two subtopics. So what was the first one? Do you remember the name? Right, starts with an A, and that's assimilation. So I'm just taking little notes here, assimilation. Now, do you remember the definition? How is that described? What is assimilation? Amazing how much your brain remembers, right? Assimilation, what does a child do? A child incorporates something they've never done before, right, into their own knowledge to achieve a desired result. And then, once you get the subtopic and the definition or description, you get an example to illustrate it, to teach you that definition better. So if you listen, you're learning. And then when you learn, you can explain it better. So that example was about what? Was it about a little girl? Was it about an old man? No, it was about a little boy, right? And what did that boy want to do, right? Kind of amazing how much you remember. That boy wanted to hang a picture on his wall. And how did he incorporate the information? He's never done it before, right? See how I'm using the words in the definition, just training you for it. You're going to hear that repetition. You're going to hear that illustration. Exactly how they define or describe the subtopic, the example will copy it 100%. That's why it's a standardized test. The boy copies his uncle, his father, right? And then you get a second subtopic. And in the second subtopic, it's not assimilation, it's accommodation. And the key thing is, now you do something what? The same? No, you change, you do something different, right? So the child doesn't get the desired result, has to change live in the situation. And what example did we get? The same one. The little boy, and when he tried to copy his father, he couldn't do it because he couldn't control the hammer very well. Now, depending on your comfort, depending on how you listened, you might have gotten different amounts, but I'm pretty confident that you got woken up a little bit to the importance of paying attention and understanding first, taking notes second, and realizing the power of your memory. And that when you rely on memory, most students immediately start concentrating on what's relevant. Remember that from the rubric, right? What is not extra and unnecessary, but what's important to explain the idea, and that's going to give you a 4 rating. So let's go ahead and use a different color and just review the structure, right? So I want you to, pause the video, take notes, feel completely comfortable watching this again, because we're going to help you with this question and the other questions you're going to have on the TOEFL. Because this way of taking notes is the same as the other questions when you read or when you listen. You want to understand first, take notes second. So what you have is a topic, and then you have that topic defined or described in greater detail. Then you have a subtopic. Again, you have that defined or described. And then you have an example that directly illustrates what the definition or description was. And you have that again. A subtopic, right? Sub T for topic, definition, description, and an example that illustrates. Now, let's talk about some variations. On the TOEFL, it's very standard to get a question exactly like this. Here are some variations to prepare yourself for that will not be a big deal if you comprehend first, take note second. You might get one subtopic, definition, and example. That happens. It's rare, but it happens. You might get one subtopic, definition, and two examples. More rare, but it can happen. The other thing you might get is kind of a very big definition, a really long description, and a short example. So it might throw you off because the standard is the definition might take 20 seconds and the example is 30 seconds. So the example needs more attention when you discuss it because it was more of the lecture. But sometimes it's different. So again, you want to listen, understand first, take notes second, and then model your answer according to the structure of the lecture. So if they spent more time on the examples, you do too. If they spend more time on the definition, then you do that. Now the next thing that I want to show you is, now that you know your memory is so awesome, you can recognize that your notes are tools to help you. So you don't need to write down everything. You just need to write down what you think you might forget. Some things you know you'll remember, and some things you won't. And that's where training helps, because you can go back and forth a little bit. You can practice the same question a few times and notice what words kind of help you and what words you don't need, and that will help you for the next kind of new question. And that's how we train. We train with one question with full power so that we gain confidence and we feel certain that on the next question we can do even better. So now that we've talked about this, you're going to watch more than once. Let's go ahead and take notes together. So I'm going to click play, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take notes. Now, for the sake of the video, what would be great is if you rewound right now and just take your time, go back, listen again, and take notes on your own. And then you can watch me take notes, and it's kind of a learning experience because you'll notice the difference. So again, right now, go back, listen again, and then take your own notes on your sheet of scratch paper, and then watch me take notes. Okay, so hope you pause the video, do that now. And now we'll imagine you did that, and let's go ahead and listen together and take notes. So I'm going to go ahead and get a new sheet of scratch paper now. We want to prepare ourselves for success. So even though we know there's variation, there are a few things that I'm going to do to train you in so that you're prepared for success. The first thing that you can do on the side of your scratch paper as this question is approaching is you can do something like this. So you'll prepare yourself with S, oops, I wouldn't put S, I'd put T, right, the topic. So it models the structure that you're already kind of anticipating. Topic, definition, subtopic, definition, example, subtopic, definition, example. Here's another thing when you take notes to keep in mind. You want to indent. Indent means move, to kind of push in or out. So what happens is when you take notes on the topic, it might look something like this. And then when you take notes on the definition, you indent. So you make little bullet points. So this shows this information is actually part of that. Now when you do the subtopic, you can kind of restart, do something similar, like this, and then the example. So that way, when you explain your notes, there's a very nice structure to it, because you indent every time you move into another level of detail. So subtopic, definition, example, so you show what your notes are actually doing. It's a nice visual aid. So these are little tools to help you take notes. Now let's talk a little bit. So as you can imagine, at NoteFull, we do a lot of training. So you're getting a lot of, I hope you see, helpful information to help you succeed. And so what I want you to take in mind is, some of you, maybe you, will just need to watch this video and you're prepared to get your dream score. And others of you will need more time. So I want you to feel comfortable that just because you know it doesn't mean you'll do it. And it's not because you're stubborn, it's just because You need training to be able to build the skills and the comfort to be able to do it on the TOEFL. That can take weeks and that can take months. For example, we have an online series for the speaking where we work with students 8 hours a week, 4 hours online classes, 4 hours self-study material where we evaluate their feedback and give them lessons based on their feedback. And students need weeks. Very focused help because it's not easy. Everyone's different. Some of us need a week or two, some of us need a day or two, and some of us need a few months. It all depends on where we're coming from. So I want you to feel confident that if after this video you feel, oh man, that was great, that was helpful, and then you try a question on your own, it's like, oh, what's going on? You know, like, I'm not applying anything. You feel comfortable. You review the video. You know, below this video is a link where we have, you know, I'll talk to you more about that later, but there's always more help. And you just, because we've been through this a lot, you know, so we know that depending on your experience with the TOEFL, it can get stressful and even a little depressing sometimes, right? Because for some of you, you've never had an exam that challenged you like this in your entire life, and you've taken a lot of intense exams. So just know that you're not alone. It takes time, so you give yourself that comfort and that space. And maybe you jump into training a little sooner than you'd like with us or anyone else, so you really start transforming and maybe not jumping around and kind of getting these different tutorials if you don't find that helpful. Because students can spend months on that before they start doing focused training and lose some time and gain some frustration and stress that way. So again, this is just a conversation and a tutoring session that's long, that I hope you found helpful. Now, let's go ahead and show you how I take notes, and then we'll do some more training and finish up this video so that there's full power. Okay, so let's listen again, and you can watch as I take notes.
Jean Piaget, a famous Jean Piaget, a famous Swiss psychologist, proposed a theory to explain how children learn to adapt their thinking to better understand and function within their world. According to Piaget, they adapt their thinking in two important but different ways, through assimilation and accommodation. In assimilation, individuals observe something that they've never seen before and then incorporate what they've observed into their existing knowledge without any change. For example, consider a little boy who wants to hang a picture in his room. He's never used a hammer or a nail before, but he sees his father use them all the time. He remembers that his father takes the nail with one hand and places it in the position he would like. Then he takes the hammer in his other hand and swings it to hit the nail so that it will firmly rest in the wall. Finally, his father takes the picture and hangs it. Though the boy has never done this before, he simply takes what he's observed his father do, incorporates that information into his own knowledge, and then uses it to achieve his desired result. That's assimilation. During accommodation, an individual adjusts or changes his behavior to adapt to new information. If we expand on the previous example, we can clear this idea up. Let's say that as the boy copies his father, he doesn't quite get the desired result. He will adapt his behavior to the situation. For instance, he knows that his father always holds the hammer from the bottom. But when the boy holds the hammer from the bottom, he finds that it is too heavy and he can't control it very well, and he never manages to hit the nail. He adapts to this new information, this fact that he can't control the hammer well, by holding it nearer to the top. Thus, the child changes his behavior as a result of the new information and succeeds at hanging the picture. That's accommodation.
Okay, so you saw me take notes. And what I hope you noticed is the indentation, and that you didn't see me take notes nonstop. You probably saw me take some time and go through I think you witnessed me understand first, take notes second. And you see how I cross things out, how I use arrows to kind of save time, and how I put keywords that I think are going to help me explain. So these are my notes. Now, what you have on the TOEFL, right, because we've gone through it, I'm going to go ahead and get a new sheet of paper and tell you a little bit more specifically about the structure, is that you will get, in question number 4 after August, question number 6 before August, you will get a lecture with a structure that you just heard and that we just went over. Then you will get a question that asks you essentially to always kind of reteach the lecture. So if we look at our question, using points and examples from the talk, explain Jean Piaget's theory about children. Always something like that. Very helpful if you miss something, because this can show you the key words that you want to make sure to explain in your answer, or maybe see a word that was a little tricky that you can see how it's spelled. So you get a lecture and then you get a question. Then you get 20 seconds to prepare your response to that question, to organize your notes, and then you have 60 seconds to speak, to answer that question, to deliver the information. So we're going to skip for now the 20-second prep time, because we're already 40 minutes into the video. And so I want to make sure to give you a chance to train and to know there's a lot of stuff that we can cover, but here's the important elements for us to improve, to train, to get better in. The link below will take you to more training, and to feel comfortable that, yeah, if you really want to improve on a question and you're struggling, it's normal to spend 8 to 10 hours mastering it. And the wonderful thing is, with that much focus, you can really transform your score. Some of us might need 30 hours per question. Some of us might need 2 hours. Some of us might need 30 minutes. But again, you want to be comfortable with whatever it takes you. So what we're going to do is, I'm not going to prepare, and you're not going to prepare either with your notes. If you'd like, you can listen again and take new notes using what you learned from my example. I think that would be great, and I encourage you to do that now, right? Pause, go back, listen again, and take notes as you watch me to kind of model that, because that's the way you can take notes for question number 4 before August and question number 3 after August. Kind of a little tricky to say that. I hope it doesn't confuse you. But when we answer, I want to remind you, because I imagine and I'm confident that you will probably say, but Joseph, I've heard this more than once, so of course I'm going to speak better than I would if I only heard it once. I agree with you that it will be easier, but one thing that we've had all the time is, just because you understand it doesn't mean you'll answer in a way to get your dream score. That's the challenge. A lot of skills we teach. So what we're going to do, to go back into the actual rubric, is to make sure, we're going to change the color here. Hope you're still with me, right? Long video, solid tutoring session, is train ourselves to convey the relevant information and make sure we're delivering in a clear, comfortable, and sustained way to boost our score into the 24, 26, 28, and even 30 out of 30 for this and all questions. So we have 20 seconds to prepare and 60 seconds to speak, to answer. I'm going to give us only 30 seconds. Wow, I'm going to punish us. Now, why am I going to do that? Because I want us to see that many students struggle with the main idea versus the minor details, and consistently as a result earn the same score of 18, 20, or 22 out of 30 instead of 24, 26, 28, which you and others are capable of. So just like listening without taking notes, pushing ourselves to speak in 30 seconds is going to challenge us to say only the main idea. So we're going to take turns. And so first I'm going to go to kind of warm us up, and then I want you to go, because it's 30 seconds. I know it's new and fresh. It'll be challenging, and we'll try this twice to kind of get used to and to realize what the main idea is. Now, what I'm going to do is Sometimes I think don't use your notes for the 30 seconds because again, it challenges you to remember, or you might want to use your notes. So it's up to you. The first one, I'm not going to use my notes. I'm just going to kind of speak from memory because my notes help to integrate that understanding, right? So let's go ahead, watch me try in these 30 seconds, listen to what I produce. I'll do my best. I might not do it well, but we're going to get to the point the best we can. Here we go. In this lecture, the professor discusses Jean Piaget's theory about how children function in the world. The first is assimilation that he describes, which is where a child observes something they've never seen before and incorporates it into their knowledge to succeed. The second is accommodation, where a child adjusts what they do to new information to succeed. And that's how the professor discusses Piaget's theory. 30 seconds. There's no time for the example, right? But you see, what I focused on was the most critical element. So now it's your turn. It's going to challenge you. It's going to be tough, but it's going to transform your feeling of the 60 seconds. So work with me. Nice and comfortable, deep breath. Won't be easy, but it's going to challenge you. So let's go ahead and give it a try. Your best, 30 seconds. Go ahead and begin. All right, how was that? A bit challenging, right? Some of you I think did well, some of you, whoa, that was pretty hard. You can retry it. I'm going to do it again. And this time what I'm going to focus on is, do you notice how I'm speaking right now with you the same way that I'm speaking in the 30 seconds? I want you to do that because if you're like most students, you can speak more comfortably and clearly and confidently without a timer naturally than with the timer. So we want to even that out. So try to allow yourself to speak as you do with maybe more energy. I personally don't speak faster so you can hear me clearly so that it's a good model. So I'm going to boost my speed just a little bit and again work within the 30 seconds to deliver the critical information because that tells you, it trains us that in the 60 seconds we have to have that 30-second core and build on it. It has to be clear in 30 seconds. And then we know we can be full and complete in 60. Also, it's extra powerful training because the majority of students, it's tough. We train them to look at the timer 4 to 6 times and adjust so you can say the important details and finish on time. A lot of students struggle with that because what will happen is in the beginning, we'll say more about the first example. We'll say more about assimilation. We'll kind of run out of time. We'll have 15 seconds left. We'll have a great answer, but we won't know how to get to the point, and the last 15 seconds just aren't clear and bring us down to a 3, bring us back to a 18, 20, 22 out of 30 on the speaking. But if we can learn to adjust, to get to the point, then even if you have 10 seconds or 15 or 20, not enough time as you'd like, but enough to get to the main point, and the rest of your answer is strong, you will have done enough to earn your dream score. And that's our goal, to put you in a position so you have the best chance of success possible. So that's where this training comes from. So I'll go again, one more time, a little faster. Here we go. In this lecture, the professor discusses Jean Piaget's theory about how children function in the world. So there are 2 ways. The first is assimilation, where a child observes something they've never seen and incorporates it into their knowledge. The professor gives an example of a boy copying his father to hang a picture. The second is accommodation, where a child adjusts when they don't succeed. For example, the boy might change the way he holds the hammer if he fails at first. Now, I didn't conclude, but do you see how this 30 seconds is just kind of training the focus? The main idea is really getting us to look at the timer and not just go through our notes, but pick what we're saying so we illustrate the idea as clearly as possible. So it's building a muscle. So I hope you're with me and know that this comes from years of training. So we've been in this video together for a while, right? 50 minutes, but imagine the TOEFL. You're going to have the reading for an hour, the listening for an hour, 10-minute break, and then the speaking section. So it'll be, hours of effort. So you can imagine this in the TOEFL center, that whatever energy you feel, you still want to feel it and perform. So one more time, your chance at 30 seconds, really get to the point. Do your best not to speak quickly, but to choose your words so that from the 30 seconds, hey, I get the idea. I don't have all the information, but I have enough to understand. So one more time, here we go. Go ahead and begin. All right, how was that? We're reaching the end of kind of our little session together, but I hope you found that training helpful, and what I want to encourage you to do is on all the questions you struggle with. For example, let's say notes are starting to distract you. Go back to the basics. Listen without taking any notes to kind of refresh yourself. Understand first, take notes second. Let's say you're not finishing on time. You're consistently going over time. You don't think you're saying the main ideas. You're lost in the details. Set the timer to 30 or 40 seconds. Less time than you have, and it'll train you to get to the main point. Now, again, we haven't even trained our 20 seconds. So now when you have the 20 seconds, and you look over your notes, you'll be even more prepared to succeed. So we like to do that in training, vary things up so that you really feel power under the conditions of the TOEFL. Now remember, we go through a lot in training to make sure that you're successful. So these are just a few of the major points that can help you improve, but there's a lot more. But before we finish, I want to leave you with the experience of a 60-second answer. So in 20 seconds to prepare, just to give you a sense, what you want to do is draw circles around each unit of information and review as you do. So what I would do is draw circles around the topic and the description, probably the subtopic and its description, so I know that unit, then the example, and as I draw those circles in the 20 seconds you have to prepare, you're kind of looking over the words, remembering what you're going to say. Now, another thing that you're going to notice, because remember, there's a lot for different students, is you want to follow your notes with your finger when you answer, and I'm going to mimic that with the highlighter. And so you're going to see me go through my notes, but you're going to see me choose what to say, because I'm going to be looking at the timer 4 to 6 times to adjust and finish on time. And I have within my mind the breakdown of how much time should be taken for each unit of information. So if you click on the link below, you'll see some of that information, and remember that that comes with time and training. So that's why we have programs that are, robust. They have a lot of information, a lot of training, so that you have the encyclopedia to succeed and to study well. But we hope this video helps some of you and gets you excited to register for more help if you need it. So let's go ahead and deliver that example answer now, and then afterwards I want you to try. And we'll do it again twice just for that strength together. So here we go. And we'll remember the question we're answering, right? Using points and examples from the talk, explain Jean Piaget's theory about children. Okay, so here we go. In this lecture, the professor discusses Jean Piaget's theory about how children learn to adjust and function in their world. He says they do this in 2 ways. The first is through assimilation. That's when a child observes something they've never seen before and incorporates it into their knowledge. The professor gives an example of a little boy who wants to hang a picture. He's never done it before, but he sees his father use a hammer and a nail to succeed at hanging a picture. So the boy copies what he sees and gets the desired result. The second is accommodation, when a child will adjust to new information. For example, as in the previous example, the professor explains maybe the boy copies his father, but can't control the hammer if he copies how his father holds it. So he'll adapt, maybe hold it closer to the top to succeed. And that's how the professor discusses Jean Piaget's theory. Right? So, not so bad. You saw me move around. You didn't hear me speed up. You heard me speak naturally. You heard my intonation. You heard what the focus was. And I hope you saw me concentrate on explaining the main idea. So now it's your turn with your notes, following your notes with your finger, doing your best. Ready? Deep breath. Relax. Center yourself. I can do it. Get your mind trained on positive thoughts. Your turn, ready, and begin. All right, how was that? However it was, I hope you found that you're working something, you're getting at something. And if we look at a rubric, we're learning to kind of create an answer that's really going to move us to the highest rating to get our dream score. Now, as I said, I want to do this twice because I want to train you that you're not repeating a question and doing it over again from memory. You're repeating the same question so that you can better strengthen the habit and the skill you've learned, focusing on the main point, following your notes with your finger, looking at the timer 4 to 6 times and adjusting. So that with a new question, so you finish with this question so you feel confident that on a new question you can get your dream score. And so again, we want to do something new with YouTube. There's a lot of stuff out there, but we want to work with you through a tutorial. Really hope it helped. One more time, stay strong. Let's really get the most out of it. So what I'm going to do is get rid of the highlighting so we can do it again and remind you that if you like this, just click the link below. This is how we teach the format, and we're here to help. So there's a lot of programs for you for the reading, listening, speaking, and writing. We even have ESL academic stuff so that you can boost your English if maybe you're getting below a 75 on the TOEFL and need to get an 80 or 100 and above. So just, a lot there for you. But going back to the question itself, one more time, you can always do better. So for me, I think managing my time, I could do better because I spent a little bit extra time on the first part, had to get to the point with the accommodation. I'll try to even it out. So always think to yourself before you try what you can do better and train so that for this question you're strong as well as for the new question. So here we go, one more time. My turn, then yours. In the lecture, the professor discusses Jean Piaget's theory about how children adapt and function in the world. He described 2 ways. The first is assimilation, when a child observes something they've never seen before and incorporates it into their knowledge. The professor gives an example of a little boy wanting to hang a picture to illustrate this. The boy has never done it, but has seen his father do it. So the boy copies what he sees his father do, using a hammer and a nail to succeed at being able to hang the picture. The second kind or way is through accommodation, where a child needs to adjust to new information to succeed. For example, the professor talks about the boy copying his father. Perhaps he cannot hold the hammer the way his father does, so he sees this new information that he can't control the hammer well, and he adapts. He changes how he holds the hammer. All right. Now in that answer, I didn't get the conclusion, but it's okay. It would still earn a top score because conclusions aren't necessary, but we always train students to have them. So if I were doing this and I do it again, I would probably get to the point a little faster with the example of assimilation, so I have more space for accommodation. So I kind of made the same mistake. So you realize that in training, it takes some repetition. The other thing that I want to show you is, just live practice. And that you don't have to be perfect to get your dream score, but you do need the fundamentals. Because one thing I'm doing is I'm looking at the timer 4 to 6 times and adjusting. So even though I can't conclude, I can hit all the major ideas. I'm speaking smoothly and comfortably from beginning to end. I'm speaking at a pace where I can think first and speak second to choose my words wisely. I'm following my notes with my finger. So I'm thinking critically, but also very on point. My notes are organized, so I'm smooth and I know where to go. And one thing I want you to do is realize again that you just need those major points to get your dream score. So your turn, nice and comfortable, apply what you learn, we can do it. Rounding out the tutoring session and the conversation together. Here we go, deep breath. I can do it to set your mind to positivity. And begin. All right, how was that? Did we get better? Did we improve? If you did, excellent. If you didn't, that means it's a little challenging. We'll take some practice. But one thing we can do is we can be proud together because we invested serious time and energy and effort towards our success. So well done. I know it's a lot, but review this video. Another time you can jump around to what you feel you need the most help with. Now remember, the goal of this video was to provide training for you, to feel better, to feel stronger, to support you with what is not as prevalent out there for you, which is the training. Because there's a lot of templates, there's a lot of time management techniques, but this way I think we've really built a skill together. And if you want more help, just click on that link below, because what we'll do is on our site, you'll have this video to review, you'll have the PDF to download of the document we created together, what you saw, and you also have the question to practice, isolated, so you can click play, go through it from beginning to end with the 20 seconds to prepare, and have more help if you want from the different programs and resources we have. So it was a pleasure, kind of a new thing, having a long video together that I hope helped. If it did, if you survived to this, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Helps keep us motivated, and if you feel it helped you. And if not, feel free to leave some feedback. But again, I hope you found it helpful. Know it's a process. It's all for you. And to stay strong. Success is coming. We're here to help you every step of the way, as we were before, to the TOEFL changes in the future and beyond. So have a wonderful day. Study hard. Hope to see you on the site. And until next time, bye-bye.